Welcome to this very special episode of the Podcast of Disaster. As always, I'm your host, JCR1216, and joining me are my co-hosts.
Heyo, I'm Yodam.
I'm Quartermons437.
I'm Funflip the Cartoon.
And I'm Sparky Griaffe.
And we have a very special host for this episode. Please welcome the infamous man.
Hi, how's it going?
And our super special guest, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everyone else. I hope I said that right. I had this queued up. The creator of Sonic x Godzilla, the legend himself, Nick Marino. Welcome to the Podcast of Disaster. How are you doing today?
Thanks for having me on here. Look, I gotta say though, co-creator, because I got an incredible artistic team with Jack Lawrence, Reggie Graham, Ed Dukeshire, and my wonderful editors, Thea, Bixie, and Riley. So I'm just one piece of the puzzle, but a very persistent piece of the puzzle.
Which I have had the honor of meeting the editors in particular, and this is literally being recorded in August, so this is right off of the heels of last month's San Diego Comic-Con, which I did get to meet Nick Marino in person. Not the first time though, and it won't be the last either.
Nope. No, we're like relatively local, so that's cool. And like, yeah, it was a good San Diego, you know, like it was a good convention this year. It was good to see you there.
So, so how would you describe your career journey?
Oh boy. I've always been into comics. It's kind of it's one of the most consistent things in my life. And I kind of knew I was always going to be doing this. I just didn't know how it was going to happen. So about 20-ish years ago, I really hunkered down and I dedicated myself in my early adulthood to figuring out how to have a comics career. And I started making webcomics. And then one of my buddies was like, hey, you want to do a small press festival? And I was like, yeah, sounds good. And I was like, how? And he was like, this is a zine. And I was like, oh, I used to make these back when I was in like punk bands and stuff. We just didn't make them this nice. And I never thought about like putting my comics, like putting a narrative in there. Our zines were more like weird collages and like, I don't know, experimental stuff. And I ended up printing out some of my webcomics as a zine, and I had a great time at that small press fest. And then I started doing a bunch of those all around Pittsburgh and the region in there. And then I just kept making webcomics. One of them turned into a daily webcomic, and I just became voracious for making comics. And after you do it for a long time, you know, you pitch people, you learn some tricks, and, you know, I can't say fast forward because it hasn't gone quickly, but now I'm here talking to you guys about this book that I'm really, really excited to be sharing with all of you. It's something that's taken a lot of passion and dedication to create.
That is that's very wonderful. I remember when I did my internship where I got to deal with brand voices. Speaking of brand voices, what would you say is a interesting part of creating comics when you had to deal with brand guidelines for the first time?
Oh, the brand guidelines. Oof. I'm not going to say they're my nemesis. My nemesis is discouragement, right? You can never let discouragement creep in as a writer or an artist. You have to keep battling against it because everything around you is going to tell you not to do it, right? And sometimes it feels like brand guidelines are telling you that, but they're not. You know, the fact is, I'm given an opportunity to have access to a much larger audience that I could ever find on my own, thanks to some of these incredible brands that we're working with. But what can be challenging about it is sometimes you don't see the contradictions that other people see, right? So I'll take Amy as an example. We have a couple of scenes in this comic where Amy is doing things that I think can be very in character for her, but depending on who's seeing the brand guidelines, they think there are aspects of those scenes that need to change. But as the writer, sometimes the story becomes your baby. So you start thinking, well, you're trying to change what's beautiful about it to me. And they're saying, no, this just needs to fit our guidelines, right? So it's reconciling that. You got to be flexible. It's almost like I was saying this to somebody recently. I've never studied improv comedy, but I always know they have this like yes and saying they use when they're trying to build ideas on top of each other. And making comics collaboratively, especially when it comes to these brands, involves a lot of yes and. I'm rarely saying no to someone. I'm saying yes, and then how can I make it my own? So I think if you bring that mentality into it, you remain flexible, you recognize that regardless of how well somebody knows a brand guideline, there still can be a disagreement about what is the best version of it or how it follows it, you know, in the closest way possible. So I don't know. I think you find when you start to make some of those handshakes, when you start to say, okay, I'm gonna do what you're asking for, and I'm gonna put my stamp on it. You start to find a lot of flexibility in there. So it becomes a fun little challenge. But there are days, I'm not gonna lie, there are days when you're like really upset about it when they're telling you no to things.
Yeah. I totally get that. I remember one time I tried for my internship. I had to deal with a brand voice thing, which was really upsetting because it kind of went against what I wanted to do. So that's
right.
That's very relatable. Guys, what do you think?
I personally, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, I do understand that contradiction where, like, you know, something may seem in character to you, but there's always going to be people that disagree.
Yeah.
The best you can do is just write what's true to you, rather than than imagining like what people might think about what you're writing about the character.
Yeah, I think that's really true. I think that is the best thing. If you go with your gut and you do the truest version to you, most of the time you can find a way through that retains it. Not always, but most of the time.
Yes.
As someone who has also a bit of a connection with the comic business, with brands and stuff, I definitely have gotten a better understanding as to how a lot of that works, especially since I've also talking to like fellow creatives of yours and such. Like, I know I've spoken to Reggie Graham before in the past about like some of the different works that they've done, and a bunch of the different design works on the main Sonic comic and such, or from the main writers like Evan Stanley, about how like things have changed and like the different pitchings. Like, I very much remember when she was still pitching, like, I'm pretty sure that she was pitching the current storyline with Knuckles that had just come out, but she had like 3 different ways of doing so. And
right. You gotta
we'll never know which one. We'll never know which one went through. But it's like, it's all just very interesting now that I have more of a clarity, especially growing up when I was just simply a fan, and now it's like, whoa, it's like a whole different world to go through.
Yeah, it's interesting once you're behind the curtain. I think one thing that I've noticed quite a few Sonic fans are curious about, that I think is sadly a lot more boring than they imagine, is like, you don't just sit down and have a cool meeting with Sega where they outline all their objectives to you. It's more like you come to them with your ideas. You say, I think this would be the ideal version. And then it's on a case-by-case basis. They tell you, that's great, can't do that. That's great, got to change that. It's kind of like, we only know so much. I mean, obviously Evan knows a ton because of, the kind of role that she has. She might even be employed by Sega. I'm not sure how that part of it works. Yeah. And see, that's funny because I don't even actually know that stuff because nobody really tells me about it. It's kind of everything I have to figure out is like inferred.
That is a very interesting perspective that you have with this. Speaking of Sonic stuff, what can you tell us about your history, not only with Godzilla, but your history with Sonic?
Well, Sonic history isn't maybe even as deep as you might imagine, in the sense that Sonic was just a great video game that came out when I was a little kid, right? Like, I was like 9 or 10 when the first one came out. I was always around it. It was something we were always playing, but I was very much a casual fan, pretty much until I picked up this gig, honestly. I loved Sonic 2. That's a game that I played through numerous times, like even as an adult, once you could like buy it and do save points and stuff, because I was never beating that game without a save point. Sorry to say, that was way too hard. Yeah. But like, I took in a little bit of Sonic everything. But when I took on this assignment, which was 4 years ago now, I really set about approaching this as I approach any project as a professional writer, which is to completely immerse myself. And I still have so much to learn. And I'm learning from stuff like your podcast all the time about little nuances I can bring to it to make it more authentic and more true to the experiences that you have as fans. But it's been really fun to, I don't know, especially this year, embrace the Sonic fandom in a way that I hadn't had the opportunity to do before. And I'm really just enjoying the journey because all of you are so creative and interesting and connected to this in very unique ways. That reminds me a lot of the way I'm connected to things like X-Men or something like that, which I've been with my entire life.
I do want to take a small detour because like it should be noted here in this episode is that this is not your first work with IDW.
No, I've been with them for almost 5 years working on projects now. More actually.
Yeah. And I guess that kind of brings up and such as us like if you want to what I believe I read it somewhere is that one of your first works was it was Transformers, right? When they still had the license. So
this is a great way to answer the part about my experience with Godzilla and my connection to Godzilla. So I'll sort of weave the two things together, right? Mm-hmm. I had, I've been making comics for a long time, much longer than I've been making licensed comics. This time, a little bit over 5 years ago, a close friend of mine got a job as an IDW editor. This is somebody I'd known because I met them at LA Comic-Con 2016. When they were walking past my booth, they recognized a print of one of the covers from a comic I did called Holy Fuck. This was like my first published work that I'd ever had. And it's a book I still really love very deeply. And the print was like, it was like Jesus on a bearskin rug, like posing, doing like a little sassy pose. And they stopped and they saw it and they were like, yo, I saw this in my comic shop in Riverside. And I was like, oh, cool, that's my book. Like, this cover is really special to me because I used to have a podcast and the podcast is how Holy Fuck got made. And then my co-host from the podcast is the person who drew this cover. So it was really special to have that as an introduction. And Jasmine Joyner was with IDW for maybe like a year and a half-ish. And about a half-ish year into their tenure, they took on the Godzilla editorial, which is how I got into that. But before that, they were with Transformers. So this time, 5 years ago, I was deep in the process of pitching an Optimus Prime graphic novel for middle grade readers, which in the book lingo basically means like 8 to 12, right? They were going to do an OGN, so it wouldn't have come out in singles first. They were just going straight to graphic novel. And my idea was that Optimus Prime is a new kid in school, and he starts a band, right? And it's like, this is his journey to like finding himself and making friends and all that stuff. I thought it was great. Jasmine thought it was great. Hasbro did not think it was great. They were like, what is this? No. Right around that time, they announced that they were taking the Transformers license over to Skybound. So maybe you can blame me. I don't know. I don't think it was me. But
come on, man.
They took it over to Skybound. But I did get to do a Transformers story shortly before I left, kind of as like a, sorry you worked so hard on the graphic novel and we couldn't make it. Here's like a 10-pager in an annual. So I did that. It was my first licensed work. It was actually quite easy. Hasbro, I've worked with a couple of times, and they're not very picky in my experience as licensors. They're normally quite flexible with the interpretations, as long as you like, you know, there's certain things they want to keep on point, but most of the time they want a weird interpretation of their stuff. So I did that. That was great. And then I kept working with that same editor, Jasmine, and I did an issue of Godzilla Rivals. So this time 4 years ago, I'd already finished my Rival script. It was off to the artist Sean Dove, and I had a different Godzilla project, one I don't want to talk about because it's actually become something else and might still get published in a different form, not as Godzilla, but as, you know, the original version it's in. But the reason I mention that is Jasmine made a farewell presentation, right? It was like, probably was being delivered like this week, 4 years ago, because they knew they were leaving the company at the time. And they put my project in there, but they didn't tell me first. So they felt a little bit guilty. And then they were like, hey, do you want to see the presentation? And they showed me the presentation, and I was like, oh, this is cool. This is nice. And then they got to the end, and there was a slide at the end. And all it said, black text on a white background, it just said Sonic X Godzilla, ? And here we are.
And that is the journey that led up to that very first pitch. Man,
Yes, which was great. But there's been a lot since then.
There has. And I guess if I may be allowed to ask this last one from my end, JCR.
Yeah.
If Nick can talk about how he got his team together. Getting Jack, Reggie, Ed, just everyone involved, basically. Because
you know
that is very important.
It is. It's incredibly important. That's Tia Chuck. That's really up to Tia. So this book began with Jasmine and David Marriott. And then Jasmine left in October of 24, and it was just David Marriott at that point because David became the Godzilla editor as well. And to be honest with you, we did a lot of versions of this, and David's very knowledgeable on Sonic, so really guided me into my earliest forays into learning what I could and couldn't do in a pitch for Sega. But David and I also have a certain friction to the way that we work, and I think in some ways it's good, but in some ways it's very challenging, and we never quite found the right rhythm for the story when David was the editor there. But Tia Chuck had been with TMNT previous to coming onto Sonic in the beginning of 2024. And when they came in, we really clicked personality-wise. I really clicked with my assistant editor, Bixie. That was fantastic, too. We've worked together on other stuff as well. And Tia kind of always knew it was going to be Jack Lawrence. And Jack Lawrence kind of always knew it was going to be Reggie Graham. Now, I can't speak for the Ed Dukeshire part. I don't know at what point Tia selected Ed. I'm so thankful that they did, because I am a huge fan of Ed, not just as a letterer, but as a person. Because when I was beginning my journey as a comics creator, Ed ran a website called Digital Webbing. And on the message boards there, the lettering message boards, all of the big names in lettering used to hang out. And I was teaching myself how to letter at that time. And I was hanging out with people like Todd Klein. Who else was on there? I used to Clem Robbins. I used to talk to all the time. I think he actually told me to call his phone one time, and we chatted, and he gave me old stories from Marvel and stuff like that. All the greats were in that message board at the time. Nate Picos, who is, if you know anything about comic book lettering, Nate Picos has given us invaluable contributions from the free fonts that he's created and lets indie creators use in their books without any licensing. So it was really, it's very full circle for me to have Ed on a project like this. That's really my first big title. And somebody like that was so responsible for my foundation of learning how to make comics. That's really special.
That's
remarkable. Man.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
man.
If I may ask, what was your team reaction to see that you're going to start working on Godzilla X Sonic of all the things? What was your first impression and your
the
team?
first reactions? Yeah.
Well, so I had a couple I had one Godzilla project under my belt when I started pitching this. But the thing was, just because I was pitching doesn't mean I was going to be making it, right? I didn't sign a contract for this until maybe the spring of 2025. So there was like a good 2.5, almost 3 years that where I was like, is this going to happen? I wanted to give up on it a lot of times. So there wasn't like a joyous feeling to knowing I was going to work on it. It was like when it finally came through and Tia was like, all right, I'm sending out the contracts, we're locking it in. It was more like, fucking finally, like we better be doing this. There's so much work into it at that point. It was a relief. That's the feeling, relief. A feeling of relief to know that it was moving forward. But look, it wasn't until it was announced this year that it really felt real to me. I felt like they could have scrapped it at any point before that.
I will have you know is that I was in my art class in college early in the morning back in February, and then I looked at my phone just because the lecture was over and I was just about to like start on my new painting assignment, and lo and behold, I see Sonic and Godzilla, and like, oh my gosh, I remember like being so frantic and getting all the covers out and everything, and then finding out about you, which I had seen the Transformers license back when IDW still had it, and I think I did see your name credited somewhere, but it was ages ago. It was back when like I was just getting into IDW as a comic book publisher. But for real though, like that morning is still cemented in my brain, and it's like, who would have thought that we'd all end up here?
That's an interesting anecdote, and I'll tell you why. It's a smaller world than you realize, especially when you're passionate about something, right? So we're all here having this conversation. We're all bringing this passion for the things that we love to this convo. And those passions unite you with people all around the world. And you never know where somebody whose name you saw once 10 years ago is going to pop up again. So I think the two lessons to take out of it are be as kind to people as you can all the time, because kindness begets kindness in return, and it always feels good to be treated the way you want to be treated, right? And I think the other thing too is you never know how people are going to grow. I'm sure a lot of people, no, I'm not sure, I know for a fact a lot of people thought a jabroni like me was never going to make this kind of comic, right? And they would probably be like, I can't tell you how many people I've encountered along the way that talk down to you or disrespectful to you or rude to you, right? But the thing is, we all share these passions, especially in this case for Sonic and Godzilla, and like, those passions can take you really far in life and take you to some really interesting places, and you never know who actually lives down the street from you. When I was growing up, one of my favorite things in the world was Roger Rabbit, and it turns out that the guy who wrote that literally lived just down the street from me. So it's like it's always a question mark, like how you're going to encounter these things. And that was in a little nowhere town, like a little farming town in Massachusetts. So it's not even like you never know who lives down the street from you in New York or Seattle or whatever. It's like you literally never know who's around you at any given point in time. So like, you got to positively foster connections, be constructive.
Considering all the stuff that like all of the different connections people have to each other, it's like, it's sometimes crazy, like it's like I totally understand what I'm not that I've been in that sort of situation, just more or less the fact I've seen what that's like one of my favorite bands is tied to like so many people in the animation industry that I know, and it's like, wow, look at that.
Yeah, you never know who grew up with who. Like, for example, I went to high school in the same town as Sophie Campbell, who's been on Turtles for forever and is now making Supergirl. So even though we're not out there talking about each other very often, we have all the same friends from our teenage years and stuff like that. And doesn't that seem kind of random? You know what I mean? Like, there isn't like a rhyme or reason to a lot of this stuff. It just kind of happens that way sometimes.
Yeah. All right, that's it. That's it on my end.
Does anyone else have any questions for this segment?
Yeah, I actually do. What actually inspired your passion for comic making?
I just always loved comics. I don't know why exactly. It's just something that really connects with me. I moved around a lot as a kid, and when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, comics were just something consistent I could rely on. I knew if I went to the supermarket, if I'm having a bad day, you're a little kid, you're 6 years old, you're having a terrible day, but if you get the chance to go to the supermarket, guess what? There's going to be a comic book there, or like, as I got older, I always knew where my comic shops were around. If I needed to escape, if something was bothering me, it's like, it's kind of cool in the sense that like, you can have chaos going on all around you, but those little static panels are still there. You can reread that issue as many times as you want and pull new meaning from it. So I guess that aspect of it spoke to me. I thought I was going to be like a strip cartoonist for a while, like kind of Garfield style. And those were great because they were just, what do I compare it to now? Okay, it's like, how you talk about your friends with whatever meme is like the last thing that you saw, you save it to your phone, you send it to people as a shorthand for things. That's the way newspaper comics used to be for us. Those were basically our memes, right? So like The Far Side, that was one I was obsessed with. We would just share them with each other constantly, photocopy it, stick it up somewhere. And that's a way of saying like, hey, we can be friends, So like, I think that comics have a lot of interesting ways of uniting us, but not in a direct way. It's kind of conceptual. It's a very playful way to connect with people. And that aspect of it I really enjoy. And when I write comics now, I spend a lot of time using that same playfulness or that same abstract way of connecting with people, but I'm doing it through the voices I give characters or the storytelling choices I'm making, rather instead of showing them something that somebody else created.
One of the questions an audience member asked me in direct messages was, do you remember your first time interacting with Godzilla? Because it sounds like you have a little bit more history with Godzilla than you do Sonic.
Oh yeah, we didn't even really talk about that. So my first thing was probably Godzilla versus Barkley. You guys know about this?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember.
I was a big basketball fan growing up. Godzilla was not really around where I was in the early 90s. It wasn't like something that was just like on TV or movies that I could rent easily. So when I was like, yo, this monster's going up against Barkley, that's sick, right? Barkley was one of my faves because my family had been from Philly, so I always paid attention to his career. And I know it's really sacrilegious, but I really liked Godzilla '98. I thought it was cool, and like even more than that, I really liked Godzilla the animated series. I thought that was really awesome when I was a teenager and I was like considering becoming an animator. I thought that like that was one of the shows that I enjoyed the most at the time. But it wasn't until I met my ex, Rosie Knight, who's also done quite a bit of Godzilla work, and she was a huge Godzilla fan. So she really got me into Godzilla, like the fandom properly, and watched like most of the movies together and, went to go see certain movies together. And yeah, it was really fun in the earliest years. And even for the early part of this project, I was able to bounce a lot of ideas off Rosie and get her input and, feedback and all that kinds of stuff. So it was like I had my own sort of casual fandom, similar to how I was a Sonic fan, but Rosie really helped me deepen it.
Okay.
That's awesome. Do any other co-hosts have a question for Nick for this segment?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No, I don't have anything else to say.
Moving on to the. Did someone mention anything?
Spark, is that you?
I was going to ask.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Quick question, Nick. I know this is usually happens with when writing comics or doing TV shows. For the first issue, at least, how many times you had to change or rewrite the entire thing till you get to the first issue approval?
It's interesting. Like, I think at some point I lost track. Because it wasn't just that I was rewriting the first issue. It's that it's even the biggest thing. The biggest challenge in this was the outlining phase. Sega really likes a detailed outline. Toho does right before you're about to go to script need more details. But Toho is also a lot more flexible in terms of they're like, we'll just sort it out in the storytelling. Also, like something that's kind of funny to consider with Toho. The monsters are never talking. So you don't have to worry about character voice in the same way that you do with Team Sonic. So getting the go-ahead to write the entire miniseries was that period, working up to that, trying to achieve that, not trying to achieving it, right? That was when the most rewrites happened, and that's when the most changes happened to issue 1, for example. Now, by the time I was going to script, I had quite a tight outline that had been approved. I mean, we're talking maybe about 1,000 words, something like that, which is pretty significant to have for a single issue outline. And I knew most of the beats. I had identified what was going to happen largely on what pages. Like every 2 or 3 pages, I had a paragraph or 2 that went with it that was quite detailed, even including some dialogue snippets. But still, when you're sitting down and you're writing that full script, a lot of things change. So I'll estimate, I would say there were probably 4 or 5 distinct visions of what the opening of the story was going to look like as we went through time. And then each of those probably had 3 to 4 to 5 different mini iterations. And then the script itself for the first issue, I don't know how many rounds of revisions, but by the time you're getting to your last round of revisions, it's like you're changing 2 lines of dialogue. Because it's really funny. Sometimes they send you a script and they go, okay, not too many notes on this one. And it's literally just like 2 words in the script are getting changed. But because of the chain of command, they want you as the writer to be the person to change your script. They don't want to have to go in and change it for you. So I don't know, let's say 30 times the first issue changed. That's my guess.
Damn.
I know.
Wow,
it really is like that.
crazy.
It's crazy.
All right, no more questions from my part.
Oh, Infamous went missing.
Uh-oh. And then, well, I was actually going to say, Court, were you going to say something?
No. I was just commenting on that number of rewrites was ridiculous.
It's just an estimate. I don't know for a fact, but that's including everything.
If it was at least 30, then my God.
I would say at least, yeah. No, because it's like sometimes you're reimagining the entire thing. Like at some point towards the end of the series being released, I'm gonna put out an image of the way I did my big rewrite about 2.5 years ago, where I said I've got to stop working digitally, and I taped a bunch of pieces of paper to my bedroom door and I rewrote everything by hand. That was a massive rewrite. But sometimes your rewrite is literally like you're tweaking 1 or 2 scenes, But 30 sounds like a safe estimate.
Which is still a lot, I would say.
It's crazy. It's insane. Yeah. And imagine a lot of that was being done on spec, as we would say. So I'm not getting paid for it, certainly. I only get paid for the scripts. I don't get paid for development. And you're also doing it so much of it wondering, is this worth my time and effort? And ultimately what I had to hold on to was I just needed to fill the story with enough moments that were personal enough to me that I could hold on to it.
Like it's what I'm personally holding out for, especially looking at your profile picture, the scene that's going to come up in issue 2 with Amy dealing with fortune cards, and however they're going to approach everything going forward. What with Eggman going off of the preview pages and such, Eggman going off on his own, Mothra going about Station Square. It's like I'm genuinely hoping to see like just something that is also meaningful to Amy as well. I know I've seen some people, especially since I work with a lot of the news groups who do like the the social media posts, the outlets for the comics and such. So it's like I do see a lot of what people have to say about like the previews and such. But
Right.
a lot of people are getting like these different ideas as to what's going to happen. And it's like I genuinely hope that some of it does end up happening as well, because I feel like it would not only make sense to the story but also make sense to Amy as well. Like Amy is such a heartful character, and whatever's going to happen with the fortune cards is like it's going to have meaning. Heck, it might not even hit in issue 2. It might be like something that might come up later in the issues. Who knows?
It trickles down, right? So when a character makes a choice, that choice filters to every other choice that they end up making after that, right? And that's one of the challenges of rewriting or revising these stories, is if they say to me, Nick, you got to change this thing in the beginning of issue 2, that can have really significant ramifications for issue 5. And then all of a sudden your revision is not taking you 10 minutes, it's taking you 10 hours, right? So in the case of Amy, what I'll tell you is this: I needed very much something conceptually, emotionally to hold on to get me through the toughest times of the development of this story. And Amy really found me. The character really connected to me in ways that I didn't expect, which is one of the joys of writing, is when a character sort of, your subconscious puts a lot of the pieces together and suddenly you find your version of their voice almost automatically. That was really great to be able to have that. And I think that a lot of people, I'm really honored that those preview pages without any dialogue sparked off a lot of conversation, because that means that this character, it matters to people, right? And what I'm saying to you is, trust me, I'm going to create an interesting adventure for you. But if I'm not doing things to make you ask questions, to spark off your imagination, to make you want to see certain things and then are surprised or excited when you see something different, then I'm not doing a good job as a writer. If you were to read this and go, I don't have any thoughts afterwards, that would be a terrible thing. So the fact that people wanted to talk about that, whether they liked what they were seeing or not, that was meaningful to me.
That's awesome, man. Again, can't wait. Especially, now that you remind me, I should bring my own, because I have the fortune card deck on hand.
Oh my
right
God,
now.
yes, bring them the next time.
I will bring it to yours. I will bring it to you when issue 2 drops. And I will also make this quick comment in case some people don't know. Yeah, no, like you go for like, favorite Sonic characters. Like Amy will always be a highlight for Nick. I'm gonna mention it that Nick has Amy tattooed on his arm. It is the
That's
artwork
true.
from issue 15 of the main Sonic comic series. It's that specific issue drawn by Jack Lawrence, and
Correct.
lo and behold, you get to work with him too.
I look at her every day.
Oh.
No, I got it after.
I need to
got
see
the
that.
tattoo. Yeah, but I chose it. I wanted it to be actually a panel from our second issue, but the angle, it's the panel where Amy in our second issue, we see her smash in the tornado. I was gonna get that one, and I was like, the angle isn't quite right. And so I dug through Jack's other issues, and I found this shot of her, which is just, it's really good. It's very powerful, very cute.
Nice.
Like
So
me.
welcome back, Infamous. We were worried about you for a bit there.
Hi, sorry, my connection dropped. I currently don't have any electricity right now, so
Whoa.
so you
That
know,
sucks.
Get out the
Sorry about
candles.
that.
Let's do this candlelight podcast.
yeah.
Is there
I love Puerto Rico. Sorry,
okay?
I was just gonna say.
I'm sorry.
Oh, God.
Here. Infamous, you go first on what you were going to say, and then we'll head back to JCR.
I was just gonna say, gotta love Puerto Rico and its privatized electricity.
Yep.
JCR?
I was saying it's all good. We all remember the great crash of January 2026.
Mm.
Yeah, my
What was that again?
remember when my entire college campus lost power for like 3
Oh
days?
wow.
And I was
Oh,
sitting
wow.
there very timidly. Yeah, my one of my buddies in college and Jack can vouch for me that was kind of insane. But
Yeah, that
yeah,
must
We
have
have,
been scary.
we have a lot of lore as well in this podcast, Nick.
Cool.
we can even,
Yeah,
we
I
can
get
even
it,
ask
and,
about fish.
Yeah, and it's the way that the rich are controlling and how would you say, ruining all of our public resources. It affects all of us.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
why that's why this podcast is 100% proudly no AI.
Hell yeah. And
Yeah.
also, like, doing this kind of thing is just really important to connect with your friends and like-minded people and make your own entertainment for each other. That matters more now than ever, because we can't trust these corporations. Like, yes, I'm sitting here talking to you as somebody who did work for some of these corporations, but the most important thing we can do is to engage and entertain each other. I'm using these symbols to tell you a story that matters to me, but when I go off and I'm not telling it with these characters, I want you to come with me, because we're going to keep finding other symbols to create conversations for each other. We're going to keep finding ways to teach each other things. And that's more important now than ever when they're really trying to take advantage of us.
Oh yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, believe me, we all have a very fun stuff. Like every piece of chicanery here is 100% human, and that includes some of our own personal memes. You talk about comic strips. The podcast of disaster has fish.
Yes, we do have fish. We will not allude to that right now in this very episode, because I believe we're going to move on to another segment, because I'm done with my questions. Everyone Is everyone done with their questions?
Don't have anything more to ask.
Infamous, did you want to say anything?
Yeah,
Since you
just
cut out. Yeah.
Sorry about that. So my question would probably be, have you ever felt like sort of trepidation when trying to start something like a new writing project, be it like original or a new pitch for a licensed comic at all? And how do you get through that?
Absolutely. That to me, trepidation is a great way of saying the gentle discouragement that we all feel when we're starting to imagine things, right? There are all sorts of things in our lives. Sometimes it's our family, sometimes it's our friends, sometimes it's people online, sometimes it's our own self-doubt that tells us we can't do something, right? But of all things, you should never be discouraged from using your imagination. I understand like being discouraged to get in a car and drive on the highway, right? There's a lot of reasons, a lot of valid reasons why you might not want to do it that day. However, there should never be any discouragement to you exploring your imagination. And that kind of discouragement or trepidation is really challenging because it comes from a very deep place, typically internally, that a lot of us have to do a lot of work to get past, to say, when my father said that doesn't make sense, I shouldn't be pursuing that story or that drawing, or when, that guy who I knew who was a professional told me that, my art is ugly, right? There are all kinds of little things that come at us all the time that are telling us we can't do something. So I think the best way to get through it is to remember this. Okay. You are the master of your own imagination. You are the one that can imagine new characters, new worlds, new situations. The only person that's going to be able to stop you from using that imagination is you. And a lot of the things we tell ourselves are, it's not good enough, it doesn't make sense, will anybody want to see this? And guess what? Those questions don't really matter. Because the imagination, the journey you go on with it to manifest things, to come up with new ideas, that's the exciting part. My favorite stage of writing is when you get to do your first outline and you're dreaming up something with nobody telling you no, nobody saying you can't do that. And the possibilities are unlimited. And the most beautiful thing about starting something new is that is how it always is at the beginning. The possibilities are always unlimited. Now, adding limits as you go is a healthy thing to channel your vision and focus your story. But you should never stop yourself from starting a new idea. So I'll tell you what I do, and this could be something maybe that'll be helpful to some of you. Anytime I get that spark of an idea, when I picture something in my mind, I think, oh, that could be a cool visual, that could be a cool scenario, that's a cool name, whatever it is, I just start a new Google Doc. I just hit the new button and I put, it doesn't even matter what you put as the name of the doc, but you just type out that thought that's in your head, right? No matter how innocuous or imperfect it seems, you've got to start somewhere by putting it down. And you have no idea how many of the things that have made it into finished stories that I've made over time just began as what seemed like a silly one sentence that I typed in a Google Doc, I wrote in a sketchbook, whatever, who knows, right? But you got to start by putting it down, because if you don't, you might forget it. And then you don't have that tactile proof to help you remember what it was.
Okay.
Dude, as someone who's been drawing for only about 2 years, everything you said right there, I needed to hear that so badly. Thank you.
Good. That's the thing is, now what you're going to do is you're going to take that and you're going to remember when you got that pen or pencil in your hand and you're thinking to yourself, should I draw this? You're going to remember me saying to you, yes, your imagination doesn't have limits. Don't stop before you even start. And you're going to take that and you're going to do great art. And then 10 years from now, I want you to give that same advice to somebody else, right? So I think one of our jobs, storytellers, we got to continue to inspire each other to keep going. It's really important.
Well, thank you so much for that.
Everything.
Dude, I needed to hear that so badly. That's some great advice. That's fantastic.
Yeah, because the thing is, you never know what you're going to accomplish, but you can't accomplish it unless you get out there, give it a chance, and a lot of times fail. I don't know if you ever see these annoying, like, inspirational things that people post where they're like, for every shot that Jordan made, he missed like 20 or some shit like that, right? But the real truth is that is kind of how it is. Like, you have no idea how many projects I've tried to make that have failed. I'd say that I used to tell people it was maybe 1 out of every 10 gets made. Now it's more like 1 out of every 20. But guess what? I'm sitting here talking to you because I made a Sonic Godzilla crossover. So if a lot failed in the process, then, so be it. That's how it was.
One of the things that someone that I idolized the creative process of, he said, if you can dream it, you can do it. And that is something that I have taken to heart, and that helps me do my own philosophy, because I know what it. As you said, like, you are going to fail. And, one of the advices I remember giving to one of my friends is, if you're not failing, then you're not succeeding, because you don't know what you could be doing to do better. If that makes sense.
Exactly. You don't know what's going to click with people either. Like, I didn't know that the announcement of this book was going to be received well. I thought it might be received poorly. And then I didn't know that people were going to like the first issue. I thought maybe that was going to fail. Like, you really can't. All you can do is your best work. And then you got to put that hope out there and that belief in yourself that your best work is good enough. Because the real truth is that it is. And it's also okay to fail in front of people. There's nothing wrong with that. Really, what defines you is how you figure out a way to adapt and keep going. You're not defined by the failure.
Yeah, that's actually how this podcast started. It came after a very, very personal failure on my end, and I decided, hey, I'm going to try to be better, and that's how we've gotten here. I mean, we're almost at 100 subscribers, and
That's awesome.
we're almost at 100 episodes, and a couple of fish later, and here we are.
100 episodes is nothing to shirk at. That's, as a former podcaster, I know that's a lot of work. 100 episodes is crazy hard to achieve. The commitment and the scheduling and all those little things are not easy.
Yeah, and I'm very thankful for my crew here.
Yeah, cheers to everyone here, and like I said, amen to the words from Mr. Marino. Truly wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. But I'm just enjoying talking to you guys. I'm telling you things that you probably actually already know. Sometimes you just need somebody to say it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of stuff that needs to be said, we have some brilliant questions from our audience that was sent in on a Google form.
Yes.
And I'm noticing some names
want
that I
to know
in here.
things from you.
I know Fern's stories. I know Sweet Life. This is cool. I'm excited to be answering questions from friends that I made online.
Oh, nice.
I'm close with Fern, so if we get around to her question, I'll make sure to let her know about that.
We all
We're
love Fern.
going to answer all these.
Yeah, Fern
Heck
actually
yeah.
appeared in an episode of the podcast. She was a part of
That
our
is true.
issue 84 review.
Love
Would love to have her back one day. A brilliant artist. I would love to see her work professionally one day with IDW and Sonic.
Yeah, same.
Okay, I will be doing the first question of if we want to do round robin.
I was gonna say,
Yeah,
I feel like we're gonna I feel like we can alternate between the co-hosts for who reads what.
Yeah, we'll do it the same way we did our introduction. Okay.
Okay.
First question is from Sweet Life. If Styx the Badger was a part of the crossover, what role would she have?
Well, it's tough to say. There were a lot of characters who were part of the crossover in a while. I would say that Styx would probably appear starting in our second issue because of what happens to Mechagodzilla. If you've seen the preview pages, you notice that Mechagodzilla, let's say, has left the city. So I would say that Styx, being kind of crafty and curious, would be a really fun character to have sort of spying on Mechagodzilla from the trees. And you know what I'm going to say? Let's make it headcanon right now. Styx is just there off panel for the rest of the comic, watching what's happening, observing. And then if we're fortunate enough to get a sequel, maybe we'll have an opportunity to bring Styx into that.
Hell yeah.
It's amusing. It's very amusing you say that because that's very similar to a pitch Ian Flynn had at the very start of the IDW Sonic run, where he wanted Styx to show up during the big the big end of arc sequence featuring Neo Metal Sonic, and Styx was apparently it would have been revealed that Styx was always on Angel Island, unbeknownst to Knuckles.
Ooh, I love that
but
idea.
obviously that didn't really happen, obviously. But yeah, no, it's very funny. Obviously, yeah, synonymous with Styx to keep her with the forest setting and everything, but it's the similarities is just so funny.
Yeah, very, very, very funny. Okay, next question. Lord M, why don't you take this one?
Sure. Anonymous asks, Nick, would you come to the Middle East for this
wrong
year's
question.
Comic-Con?
Wrong question.
Go ahead.
Oh.
Wait, what do you mean wrong
You
question?
missed Redbird's question.
My bad. Redbird Place asks, how do you end up writing the story for the series, and maybe any future hints of what we could expect?
So we know how I came to end up writing this. We discussed that. It was through a combination of luck and hard work. And any future hints? Let me think of a few things I can drop that aren't spoilery but are funny. Okay, well, something I've been mentioning casually online is that you're going to see Orbot and Cubot a little bit more as the series progresses. You may have already seen them in the unlettered preview pages that we've released. And let's just say that Orbot and Cubot are given a responsibility that they probably shouldn't be given. So there's that. That's going to be a poor decision.
Oh boy, that's going to be fun.
And let me say that there is something that no one, not a lot of people have guessed what's going to happen in this. And I do love their guesses, and they are coming from a place of knowledge about both the world of Sonic and the monsters of Godzilla. But nobody has guessed something that's about to become a really important part of the story as we move into our final 3 issues. And it's related to Orbot and Cubot's responsibility, and it's related to Eggman's plans. And yeah, I'm excited to see how people like it because it's something that I basically had to do after a series of different situations. It led me to this place, and it was something that was really fun for me to come up with, and I hope people like the way it's executed.
Yeah, the specific thing, especially that was highlighted in him taking over the issue 3 solicitations, it's very interesting.
Yeah, it'll be connected to that stuff, of course.
All right. I believe next is Court. Yeah.
Well, Lord M pretty much already asked this question, but it is from an anonymous person, and they ask, Nick, would you come to the Middle East for this year's Comic-Con?
I feel like I might be able to guess who asked this, but I don't know for sure. I might have more Middle East fans than I realized. I would love to do that. However, comics do not pay very much. My little comic shop that I own here in Los Angeles does not earn very much. I am living very frugally right now. So if somebody wants me to go to their local convention, you got to tell the convention you want me to be there. And that convention is probably going to have to pay for my flight and my hotel while I'm there. If they do that, sure, I'll go almost anywhere.
Okay.
Fair enough. I'm next. Yes.
No. I was just saying, like, I know for like, I'm sorry, I was just gonna say, like,
Go ahead.
I've heard like comics are not exactly a rich industry, but you do it because you love it, and I know that for a fact.
You know, I've tried jobs that were supposed to make me money, and they just made me very unhappy. This is something that makes me very happy to do this, to be here, to be talking to you all about telling stories and using our imagination and inspiring each other. That's meaningful to me. So, you know, if it means that I'm, you know, eating more frozen pizza than sushi, that's just how it is.
Yeah.
Dang.
Floof, I believe you have this next question.
Yes. Here we go. This question is from Fern Stories. Hey, Nick. First, thank you for being Peak.
Definitely.
Next, my question is, if I may ask, no worries if not, and not that it matters either way, but did Sega or Sega Japan or IDW or whoever is in charge of that, sorry for my ignorance, give you specific directions to focus especially on Amy for this crossover, or was this your creative choice / idea you pitched and they loved? Either way, thank you for your amazing service to the Amy Rose fan base. Lucky enough for Ferns, we sort of touched on that a little bit.
Little bit, but I do have more specific answers to this question. And thank you, Fern. This is a great question. I appreciate it very much. Very
She has
meaningful
2
to me.
more questions in this one.
Yeah, Fern did great. I love the contribution.
Multiple questions, yeah.
And so for this, Fern knows what she's talking about, all right? Because the real truth is, getting guidance from Sega of America, or Sega of America, right? Sure, I know companies. And Sega of Japan, these are not the same thing, right? Their messages don't necessarily come down the same way. They don't always tell you the same. Sometimes they say things that contradict each other, right? So the answer here is yes. I was given quite a degree of guidance with Amy Rose. My initial instinct, which I tweeted about maybe a couple of weeks ago, when people were like, what are these cards doing in the story? Like, where's the hammer? I was like, don't worry, you get plenty of hammer. In fact,
clearly they didn't see the preview pages that I posted from my car.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's right, because we gave them to you guys. So look, I wanted the original arc for Amy. Not original, I'm not going to say. The original arc for Amy was very much like, there was a time when some of Team Sonic was going to go through the portal and go to Godzilla's world.
Oh.
This was not something that was feasible for whatever reason, for a number of different reasons. I'm not going to put any one place on the spot, but it just wasn't something that ultimately they wanted us to do, let's say. Amy was not intended to go through that portal, at least not the first round. It was going to be like Sonic and Tails who went through first, right? Amy was going to be the one on the other side of the portal, holding things down, trying to make sure that it was safe for them to return. And that's where Amy's challenges were really going to be. As we found out that no, Team Sonic would not be going through the portal, I had to evolve Amy's role. So it was very much kind of, I look at Amy as like, Sonic is your big dog, right? Like, you can send Sonic out there. It's kind of like, I'm going to do an X-Men analogy, right? Amy is like your field leader, is the kind of the way I see it, because Sonic is so busy being Wolverine, essentially, right? That you can't necessarily have Sonic directing everybody at the same time, because Sonic's energy is directed in so many. Sonic is like the missile you aim at things to get a job done, right? And Knuckles can very much be that way too, but Knuckles is maybe a bit more like a Colossus in terms of strength and power, right? Tails is great, but Tails is like Beast, and Tails' attention is going to be on a number of different things. So Amy's a bit more like, I don't know, maybe like a Storm, or a Cyclops, even in a way, where you've got to have somebody who can observe all of it, contribute to the Force, but isn't your primary focal point of your Force, right? So that's why I thought souping up Amy's hammers would be really fun. I was like, I was going to say, my thought was, they all have names based around their abilities except for Amy Rose. So she's going to tell everybody, like, I need you to make me some sick mech hammer arms, and I want you to start calling me Hammers, right? I was going to try and level her up that way. And they were like, no. I was like, okay, I get it. I was a big swing, right?
Yeah, I remember
Unintended.
you posted about that.
It was
True.
So
Finally,
I got a note from,
Hedgehog.
I don't know if it was Sega of America or Sega of Japan, but I got a note that basically said, what about Amy's more mystical side? And I was like, oh, I hadn't really considered utilizing that. And that's what led me to the path that it took me to here. They asked me to use the fortune cards. And I was like, oh, this is cool. Yeah, let's do this. I like this. And in doing that, I kind of tapped into a different aspect that really made me fall in love with the character. So I was really thankful for that suggestion to use the fortune cards. And I ran with it in that one scene, and I ended up leaning into it very much in the way that Sega asked and suggested. But that doesn't mean that it was always smooth sailing just because I was taking their first suggestion. And you got to understand, these companies, people come and go. So whoever asked me to do that, that wasn't necessarily the same person that received the issue once it was fully drawn, because they still wanted to change things about it after they had it in their hands. And I wasn't happy with that because I felt like we'd been approved and locked in on this. But I think we ended up finding solutions that worked for everybody.
Awesome. Next question, Sparky, go ahead.
Yep. This comes from an anonymous. Does this crossover make Amy and Eggman as a duo?
No.
Love the answer.
Great question. No, you know what? Amy and Eggman sass each other up. I don't think they have a lot of respect for each other. I don't think, first of all, I think Amy thinks Eggman's kind of an idiot. I think that she thinks he's overrated, personally. That's my take. I think Eggman doesn't pay attention to Amy. I think Eggman's more concerned about Sonic and Tails and the sort of threat that they pose. Even though Eggman doesn't really respect anybody, I don't think he looks at Amy first off and thinks that's the one I'm worried about, which really ends up being to her advantage in these situations.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Me too.
Infamous, would you like to get this ball rolling on this next question?
Sure. Yeah. This is another question by Fern Stories. If you could pitch another Amy Rose focused story to IDW or a Sonic game without too much spoil, feel free to ignore if this question could risk you being able to fulfill this idea. LOL. Would it be a solo adventure, new characters, or if a sidekick/assist role for her, and if so, who? Question mark.
Well, first of all,
I feel
he
like
would be
Fern's
main
is
character.
catering to a side of Nick. I can't put my finger on it.
It's
Yeah.
hard to pinpoint it. Look, shout out to Fern again. Appreciate this question. Here's the deal. I have pitched solo Amy stories, okay? It unfortunately did not get the green light, but I'll tell you, essentially, I'm not going to tell you the plot, but I'll tell you my approach to it. I love the idea of doing solo Amy stories. That would be my dream thing to write in the Sonic world. That or Knuckles. I love writing Knuckles, but that's a very different muscle that I flex when I do that.
Nice pun.
When it comes to Amy, I thought, it's not that we haven't seen Amy without the rest of Team Sonic. We've obviously seen that before, and we've seen what Amy can do in a leadership role, and that's great. But I wanted to see, what does Amy do if Amy is out sort of, and she's not surrounded by her usual allies. That's what I was looking to explore in solo adventures. So there was one pitch that I asked if I could pitch. That was Amy teamed up with somebody very notable, a big combo that the fans want to see and that my editors wanted to see. That story did not land right. That's okay. Then they came back to me and said, well, we don't want that one, but what about solo Amy? And I was like, let's do it. Solo Amy sounds great. And I would sprinkle into those pitches a little bit of Sonic here and there, a little bit of Tails here and there. Ultimately, the direction I took those in, Amy's your main character. Amy is either discovering something on her own or in some cases being contacted. So that one of the things that I was using actually is like a touch point. Normally the way it works with Sherlock Holmes is somebody comes and seeks out Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock doesn't have to do a lot of looking to get into some shenanigans. So I would have characters that would come and approach Amy for whatever her skills were in that particular situation because they needed her help. And then once she's in this locale, she's doing this adventure on her own, she's making new allies and finding new enemies. I thought that would be a fun approach to it. So that was what I developed. It wasn't that they disliked what I gave them. It just wasn't the right solo adventure that they needed at that time. So hopefully down the line, if I continue to receive the great kind of support and enthusiasm from our readers that I've been receiving about my approach to Amy, I'll have that opportunity again and you'll see what happens.
Awesome.
I actually really like that. Like, I feel like it does make sense for Amy too, is because like out of all the characters, she's like the most normal one. Like she has her abilities and such, Pico Pico Hammer, she and her mystical connections, I'd rather say.
Yes, that's a great way to say it. Yes.
Yeah. But it's like she's the most normal character to be friends with Sonic and the others, especially since like I'm gonna throw this out there since it's in relation to the story. It's like in the early modern Sonic games, Adventure 2, she used to live in Station Square. Like she was just a normal teenage girl just living it out in the big city. So it's like, yeah, I feel like that makes a lot of sense for her.
It's a natural fit. She's a good in character. It's easy to at least for me, it's very easy to relate to her because I'm very optimistic and tenacious, and I do my best when somebody puts something negative in front of me to try and find a positive outcome for it. So I relate to those aspects a lot.
Next up is another question from Fern. Who would win in a fight, 100 gorillas or one Amy Rose?
Oh, Amy, definitely. Pico Hammer wins this fight.
Oh my gosh. I laughed so hard my microphone didn't even pick up. Oh my god. Ferns!
You got to understand, somebody pointed out, there was a reviewer, I don't remember their name, and they pointed out that Amy hits Mechagodzilla with the Pico Pico Hammer, and it's kind of a big deal that it didn't make a dent, because that hammer has got juice. So, come on,
You're
100
right.
gorillas?
especially since like the equivalent of it is it's supposed to be like a squeaky toy hammer, but Amy puts in that amount of strength for it to like actually hit hard. And yeah, you're right. It did make a dent on Mechagodzilla, but it did knock it back. So at the very least,
it delayed it for a second.
As well as the added propulsion from the tornado.
Of course. Yes, you have to factor in all of that. But yeah, sorry, gorillas.
Oh, I feel sorry for any gorilla characters in the background of the IDW Sonic comics.
Don't even
You
try
cannot
it,
stop the
gorilla.
rose.
Take the day off, gorilla.
You cannot stop the rose.
Oh, and that's actually funny because Amy fought Gorilla Grodd in the DC crossover. Oh my god!
Well, that's a different scenario. That is essentially the smartest brain on the planet. So.
That's one gorilla, not 100. So
Exactly. Thank you. Yes.
At least there's some official material of it actually happening, though.
Okay, next question, Lord M, take it away.
Sure. Sonic Fact asks, any changes you were surprised to happen between the drafts?
Yeah, absolutely. So my first stuff was very centered on time travel, and I was very surprised when they said, that's gone. And I was like, okay, I guess I got to start over from scratch again. And then my next draft was really focused on trying to draw a connection between Angel Island and Monster Island. And the portal was going to open because they sort of had a similar energy field scenario. I was almost going to make them alternate points on different worlds, right? Kind of one directly connected to another. And at some point they were like, we don't hate it, but like it's too much Angel Island. And you know what? They weren't wrong. It was too much Angel Island. So they came back to me, and the biggest surprise happened when they said, want to use Station Square? What do you think about that? And it's not a surprise in the sense that we have seen a kaiju there before, right? With Chaos. However, I was surprised that they wanted me to use that specific city because we haven't, other than like a quick little side panel, haven't really seen it in the IDW stuff. And two, I was surprised that they were so welcoming to somebody as maniacal as me to getting my hands on a city like that, because we really destroy a lot of things. I mean, there are some, it's great. We're shredding that city to pieces. So yeah, that was a big surprise when they brought that up, and it led to my editors surprising me a final time with the location for our final battle, which I'm not going to give away anything about.
See, I think that's funny considering like people wanted to see like Godzilla show up in a place like Station Square, again because of Chaos in previous games. It's just that, no, it's like, I'm surprised that you think that's surprising because of the fact that like the fandom really wanted that. I know I've seen that a lot like in the past. So.
Oh yeah, I was more surprised that Sega was fine with it. They were like, take it, run with it, destroy it, and I was like, great.
Commit arson with it.
I thought they would want me to create a different city, honestly, is what I thought they were going to want. I didn't think they'd want me to take somewhere sort of as beloved and rooted in the lore of the franchise.
In all fairness, now that we know the fact that Station Square has rebuilt since Chaos, I guess more or less the fact that it's like, it's not, yeah.
That's good. It's resilient. Yes. They have the resources to rebuild.
Who knows, maybe Station Square will become like Marvel's New York.
I would love that.
Okay.
Who's next? Court? Yeah, Court. You're
What was it?
Narrow
Okay.
question.
Narrow
Okay,
question.
so this question comes from Narrow, and they ask, what was the most surprising thing they allowed you to keep in?
Oh, I was just reading something. It's the jokes. That's the answer, really. There are a lot of jokes that we'll see what happens because they're not printed yet. But but they did print in little things that I thought maybe they'd want to change in the first issue. Like I love when Eggman says, "Oh, look, it's the Idiot Brigade and their antiquated whirligig." They let me keep that. And as we move forward into the series, there are little jokes that really surprised me that they allowed me to get away with. There's something coming up, a Sonic and Knuckles gag that they let me, a lot of Sonic and Knuckles gags, actually. Those two are really fun to write as foils for each other because they sort of just don't understand each other in some ways. And they get into really weird banter. And yeah, there are a lot of jokes between those two that they let me get. Oh, and there's something I'm so excited for when the second issue comes out that they let me keep. And you got to remember that Team Sonic doesn't know the names of these kaiju. They don't know what a Godzilla is.
You're right.
Right? So they have to come up with their own names for them. And there's a name that one of them gets in the second issue that I'm really excited about because it has a very personal connection that's helping me recontextualize something that I will be excited to talk about the week that it's on shelves.
Oh, man. I can't wait to talk with you in person about it. That'd be so fun. Oh, wow. Actually, while I'm talking, I guess now we go on to next question. Yeah. This one is from an anonymous user. Did you listen to any songs while writing? If so, what type?
Oh,
What type
so
of genre?
much. Absolutely. So music is my number one inspiration for when I'm telling stories. I have a background as a musician, and I draw a lot of inspiration from putting myself in the right mental space with the right music. So I'm going to go into my playlists right now and tell you the main playlists I wrote to. So the primary playlist I wrote to, where is that one? Oh yeah, it's just called SXG. I got to remember to share it soon, actually. And it's all music from the same band. It's a band called Space, who's like a late 70s, early 80s, I don't know, electro disco group, mostly instrumental. And I made this great playlist that I used when I was talking about that rewrite I did where I had the pieces of paper stuck on the wall. All I did for 2 weeks was rewrite this outline and listen to this playlist. And they have great names for the songs like Magic Fly, Just Blue, Fasten Seatbelt, Air Force, Tango in Space, Running in the City, Flying Nightmare, a lot of things that I could sort of pull inspiration from, put that song on loop when I was trying to design what this version of the story would look like. So that one was really helpful. But the story did change a lot after that, because that was my big Angel Island draft. So after that one, I moved into other playlists. Like I had one I was listening to a lot around the time that I watched Sailor Moon Eternal. I called the playlist Eternal, and it was a lot of like, I don't know how to describe it. Sort of like there's a word for the genre, but I forget what it is because I'm old and I don't know all this stuff. But I was listening to this artist called Macross, and then an artist called Vantage. Those are the two that are in that playlist, and they were ones that was when I was really started to embrace Amy as my personal focal point for something that was inspiring me. And those songs are like really upbeat, almost like kind of, I don't know, dance music that samples a lot of city pop and other stuff like that. So that really kind of gave me the energy to amp up the action and energy in the story. And then finally, I don't know, then I started creating a lot of other tiny little playlists. This one's got a real troll title called Pure Chaos. Don't take that too literally. I had another playlist called Pay Me around the time that I was wanting to get paid for my scripts. So those ones were filled with a lot of stuff similar to Eternal that was quite like upbeat dance music, because I really like instrumental music and I really like dance music.
Okay.
Alrighty, cool. Yeah, the share them. You'll have to definitely share. Like, oh, like maybe when you get around to it, you'll share them. Like, just here's a playlist that you guys can
You know what? When this
my
podcast comes out, I'll drop my SXG playlist, and then I'll slowly start sharing the other ones as we move forward.
Yeah, this episode of the podcast comes out August 18th, hopefully.
Sounds great.
Yeah, we upload every Tuesdays and Thursdays, and let me take this minute to remind everybody to subscribe. We're almost at 100, and it'd be really cool.
Yeah, please help us get
Nice.
there.
Yep. Sparky is a little absent right now because he's attending to something infamous. How about you take this next question?
Okay, yeah, sure. Okay. Was Knuckles in an earlier draft of issue 1?
Yes.
And by the way,
That was asked by Spouse Master 9, by the way.
yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
what I was going to say. Sorry about that.
So when it was very Angel Island focused, Knuckles was there almost immediately. However, that particular version of the story, I brought in most of our main characters right away in issue 1, Kaiju included. And I got notes back from Sega around the time that they were like, please use Station Square. They were also like, I think you need to you can't just put everything in the first issue because then it makes it feel too much of the same after that. I disagreed in the sense that I thought I could have handled layering it fine, so it would have been satisfying. But I took their advice to heart. I did my, yes, okay, let me build on this constructively response. And I started to layer in things by issues. So for example, we begin with Sonic and Eggman, and then we layer in Amy and Tails towards the end of the issue. We layer in Knuckles in issue 2. We really start to layer in Shadow in issue 3. And I did take, we have many less kaiju than we do characters on the Sonic side, so I couldn't layer in quite the same way. But if you've read the first issue, you know that we're clearly layering in Godzilla for later. So yeah, there was a version where Knuckles was there from the beginning. But honestly, Knuckles is a fun character to throw into a wild situation and kind of have them be confused, because Knuckles is such a good straight man character. So I actually enjoyed delaying Knuckles' arrival into the story.
All right. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I think it would be best. Yeah, we should continue on with everything, and when Sparky does return, we'll wrap back around to them.
Yeah. So this next question is
JCR,
from Anonymous. Do you like shipping? If so, what are your favorite Sonic ships?
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
I do love shipping, but I don't feel that it's right for me to comment on my favorite Sonic ships.
Of course.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's fair to do it to people, because I want them to think that whenever I'm writing characters, maybe that's what I'm shipping. I will tell you, I won't call it an unpopular ship, but I'll say I had a ship that I was holding on to very tightly throughout these issues that I was writing, and it definitely isn't what you're thinking. I'll guarantee that. No, there is a ship that people have rightly identified that I will talk about, and that's Eggman and Mechagodzilla. That one's very obvious.
That's just beautiful.
Yes.
That's just
Okay,
beautiful.
this is a great answer.
Oh, you know what? We missed the question though from a different anonymous, or maybe the same anonymous, which was, "What's my favorite part of the first issue?"
Oh yeah, I didn't even realize that.
My bad.
Oh,
No, it's all good.
all
No,
the
it's fine.
anonymous.
There's a lot of anonymous. My favorite part of the first issue. Okay, I do really love the antiquated whirly gig line. I also really, really, really love the moment when Mechagodzilla hits Eggman's mustache. That was really fun for me. Although that sort of evolved after. Like, we didn't have a line on that panel eventually when he's like, I forget what he says, "My delightful mustache," I think he exclaims. That was not originally in there. We added that during the lettering phase. But my favorite part that Jack Lawrence and Reggie Graham executed so well is once the kaiju are in the city fighting, Eggman's not trying to stop them from fighting. Eggman loves the destruction, right? So we see Eggman start to do a recording for himself. And I wrote it very specifically. I spend a lot of time describing this kind of stuff to Jack throughout the book, which is choreographing where characters are in the space at any given time. And the vision for that was Eggman basically starts at the top, analyzing Mothra, starting with the air character in the Eggmobile, and then descends through the sky as he analyzes Mechagodzilla. And I just love the way that Jack Lawrence did that. And you really do see Eggman go from the clouds basically to the ground floor as he analyzes these different kaiju. And that was something that I envisioned being really fun to see, because then you get to see the different stages of the city and the destruction that's happening as you descend with Eggman. And I thought Jack just did such a wonderful job choreographing that.
I will say right now is that my favorite joke is definitely the one where the citizens are almost about to get buried in rubble, and one of them is all like, "I should have gone to Casinopolis with my brother."
Yeah, and people were giving me crap about that because they're like, "Well, they'd still be in the city." Yeah, you'd be in the city, but you wouldn't be on the street getting a building dropped on you.
Yeah.
You'd be safely underneath the train station. Like, come on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
gambling saves
gambling.
lives, kids. Remember that. I'm joking.
Yeah, thank you.
Man.
Thank you. It does.
I'm glad that one at least got kept in. I do think it's
No, that was maybe the last line I added to the issue. That wasn't
Wow.
even but
Nice,
really
sneak it in.
Really got it in there.
Sneak it in.
That panel needed something. Nobody was talking in that panel, and I was like, "No."
This is awesome.
Yeah, Infamous, how about you take this question, since it was originally your question before I reached out to see if you wanted to be a surprise special guest host.
Oh yeah, you
Okay.
got to read your own
Hey.
question.
Nice.
Infamous answers.
All right.
Infamous asked the question from Infamous.
All right. So, if you could write a Shadow X Godzilla miniseries, which kaiju would you have the ultimate life form face off against?
Oh, I love this question. So, I have a very complicated relationship at the moment with writing Shadow, where I really enjoy it, but I don't feel like everybody else is really enjoying it, in the sense that it's difficult to get his voice to a place where everybody wants to sign off on it. It's really challenging. I originally wrote a version of Shadow with internal monologue, and they said, "No, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
Too many words, too much talking." So then I pared it down and I cut it down to a third of what I'd written, and they still said, "No, too much." And they cut out about half of those lines. It's gotten to the point where sometimes they will actually rewrite a Shadow line because they think that it's in the wrong voice. That's a tough thing to accept as a writer, but I also understand I have a lot to learn about how to write these characters. This is just my first Sonic story, so that's okay. I'll allow it. But I would love to write a Shadow-focused Godzilla crossover. It's not currently what my design is for a potential sequel, again, because I think that they're not quite comfortable with my version of Shadow yet, and I still have a lot that I can do to improve it. But if I was going to write it, Destroya, definitely. Shadow and Destroya, that would be great together. That would be the main kaiju. And then the ones I'd probably bring in around, I'd probably want to use Space Godzilla. I'd probably want to use Ghidorah with Shadow. I think that would be really fun. And if we're thinking about, I don't want to spoil anything, but I will say one of the kaiju that's in this is a bucket list. I would want Shadow to fight this kaiju, and they get to in this in a very unique way. So I've already got that taken care of. So that's good. I guess Hedorah, I think, would be really fun. Shadow is your darker in to the Sonic world, in terms of heroes. So I think I'd want to explore some of the darker kaiju.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Actually, a lot of your responses were stuff I wasn't really expecting. I was thinking you were going to say Biolante or something.
I love Biolante so much, but I have already identified who I want to be involved in a Biolante story, and it's right there in front. You can't miss it. It's so obvious.
All right. Well, I guess I'm one of 5 Ibora fans.
No, I love that big old shrimp or whatever you want. Whatever you want to say. I'm gonna be honest with you and say that's not on the top of my list for who I want Shadow. I want to see the gritty guy go up against the gritty kaiju. Maybe that's wrong though. Maybe I should be thinking of Shadow versus the Mothra twins or something. I don't know.
Put them against Sewa.
Yeah, there's so many different options. There's so many great directions we can take it. The real truth is, any idea I have, it's going to get changed so much in development, and it's going to push me to new things. That's whatever I'm thinking now is never what you'd see on the page.
All right, sounds good. That was great.
Yeah.
All right,
you're back.
yeah.
How about
Sparky, you're gonna take the next question.
Yep.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
From
Are
Mighty
you
Ray.
familiar with Ray and if you are, what kaiju would tolerate him?
Obviously,
Well, first off-
you're referring to Ray the Flying Squirrel, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that's right. Let me just say I love a flying squirrel. Okay. I think flying squirrels are just great animals in general. They're so weird. And what would I want to do with Ray? It wasn't something I tried not to read these questions ahead of time. I didn't want to have canned responses. What kaiju would tolerate Ray? Well, first of all, we have to talk about the fact that I think of any kaiju, Mothra does have the capability to tolerate other life forms quite easily. So I think in that regard, that's not difficult. But let's say I'm going to go out on a limb here. And I'm going to say, maybe Ghidorah would actually really vibe with Ray. You know, they kind of got, they got similar coloration going on. Maybe they're up in the sky together. You know, maybe they find a little unexpected bond.
Like King Ghidorah?
Yeah.
Huh?
I mean, the sky's the limit. And then, as most Sonic fans would know, is that Ray is often paired up with Mighty the Armadillo. So that only means Mighty is also along for the ride as well.
Hey,
Yeah,
Mighty,
see,
look, my new friend.
Yeah, right. Like maybe Ghidorah gets in the way of their relationship. You know, it's like it becomes a love triangle or something.
Wow.
Sibling triangle. Sibling love triangle.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I have to emphasize, Ray only gets along with King Ghidorah's left head. Does not get along with the center or right head.
So only got it.
Yeah, it's really complicated, guys. This is you can't even. Wow, crazy.
Yeah.
Could you imagine classic Sonic and well, that's probably what. Yeah. Oh gosh, that would be a whole other bag of worms to go through. Let me see here. So we kind of did this out of order in terms of.
I'll do the start. I'll start it back up.
So, yeah, I was actually gonna say, we're down to the last four. So Sparky asked the question. Infamous asked his own question. So I think let's do Lord, Court, me, and then ending it off with you, JCR. Does that sound fair to everyone?
Sounds perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, cool. All right, Lord, you're next.
All right. For Power, I hope I'm saying that right. What is your favorite anime?
My favorite anime is The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya. And I would definitely recommend that you watch it. It's a banger. However, I would absolutely recommend that you do not watch it in the order that it's on in Crunchyroll currently. I think you've got to make sure you watch it in the original order that it aired in Japan, because the show plays out non-linear that way, but it maximizes the emotional investment in the characters. So like there's a version that's currently on Crunchyroll that's basically like everything happens chronologically, and I understand why they did it, but I think it was a mistake to do that. I fell in love with the show watching it in the original airing order, and I think that's like, so basically they make a student film during season 1, and in the original order the first thing you watch is the student film, not any of the like stuff that leads up to it. So you get to learn about the characters in a really fun way, and you're constantly discovering things about them that you don't necessarily get to discover in the same way if you watch it chronologically. So yeah, that's a big one for me. And then after you watch that, then you got to go into season 2, which is really crazy because it's like a time loop season for half of it, and like half of the episodes are almost exactly the same except for like 1 or 2 details. So it really tests your endurance, and then it goes on to, instead of it being a 3rd season, it's a film, and I really love the film. It's terrific. I'm not as into the Nagato season or seasons. I can't remember if there's more than one. I felt like it sort of devolved into a bit of fan service after that, personally. But those first 3, the first 2 seasons and then the movie, those are like, for me, that's the best anime.
Okay.
Wow.
That was certainly a blast from the past.
I know, it's an
reminding me of-
oldie.
One of our co-hosts loves Loop in the Third.
It's a good one.
Yes.
Yep.
And I think I'm being reminded how I think I asked someone online about their favorite anime, and I remember them mentioning, was like, yeah, they like Fooly Cooly, but only the first season. And that's
Yeah, that'd be tough when you don't like all of it. Yeah, Cooly was one that never clicked with me, but the animation's great.
Holy Cool's
Yeah.
first season is always going to be the best.
Yeah.
Everything else kind of fell off.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Court, you're next.
Okay, so these last 3 questions are all from Sandman 290. The first of which is, what is your favorite type of ice cream?
It's a tough thing for me to talk about because I can no longer eat sugar, as I am on the precipice of becoming diabetic.
I'm so
So
sorry.
it's okay. You know what? I was too reckless in my youth. Too many candy lunches. So I would say probably my favorite flavor of ice cream is the one I have the best memories connected to. And I used to live in rural Massachusetts near a place that was called Kimball's Creamery. That if it was a good weekend, we got to go there, and I used to get a raspberry chocolate chip ice cream from them. And to me, that's still in my mind one of the most delicious things I've ever tasted.
Okay. That sounds like a good flavor.
It's great. There's some other places make it, like you can get it in the supermarket and everything, but it's not as good as it was from them.
Okay.
Okay. Second question. What is it like writing, and what software do you use?
Writing is challenging. You've got to create the right circumstances for your imagination to not only be flowing while you're writing, but not be going so fast that you can't get it all down. You have to be patient with yourself. So I think writing is very much an exercise in self-discipline. You have to be patient with yourself. You have to take a lot of breaks while you're doing it, but you can't completely lose focus, because if you do, it's like, I know this is going to sound wacky, but I'm just going to describe what it's like for me. Writing for me is like very much like dreaming, right? And when you're dreaming, sometimes it feels like you're in another world, in another reality. And that's the way writing can often feel for me. It looks like I'm getting a window into another world. It's like I close my eyes and I can see the movie of what Sonic Godzilla was going to be playing for me, right? But it's not just seeing a movie. You got to type it too, right? You got to get it or write it down, right? So when I'm doing that, I'm 9 times out of 10 working in Google Docs, but sometimes I'll work in the Notes app, or sometimes I'll write it by hand. And the thing is, for writing comic book scripts, you don't need to be using a special software. I use Google Docs because it's most accessible and easy to share, and I can use it both offline and online, and I can export it as a PDF or a Microsoft Word doc quite easily. And typically you want to use a PDF for a lot of your early stages, and you want to use a Word doc for a lot of your later stages. That's the document that a letterer prefers to work from. So yeah, I don't know, writing comics, if you poke around online, you'll see me talking a lot about process. I've described it a lot of different places, but basically it's like, you have an idea, you write a few paragraphs, the few paragraphs become a full page, the full page becomes fuller pages. And by this point, in my case, it's still prose. I never begin writing a script until either I've conferred with my collaborator and they say, let's move the script, or I've spoken to my editor and they say, let's move the script. And then at that point, I basically take the outline and break it apart into separate sentences. And those sentences become the foundation of your panel descriptions.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I've used Google Docs. I use a Writer Solo. It's like screenwriting.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
There is no wrong way to do it, by the way. You got to use whatever program suits you. As long as you can export it into multiple formats, you're fine.
Yeah. I wish I knew about it when I was making my TV show.
Oh, it would have made it so much easier to write in this program at that time?
Yeah. Because 16-year-old JCR would have liked that while he was writing.
Oh, I understand. I mean, hell, I wish I had Google Docs when I was a teenager. It would have made writing a lot easier for me, because back then it was like any writing I was doing had to be done by hand, and it was difficult to sort of type on a computer back then. Like, I love that we type on screens now. For me, typing on a screen is much easier than a raised keyboard with those really tricky keys.
Yeah, I do text to typing for a lot of stuff. I use voice to text, because I'm like, oh my god, because I'm like one of those people that like speaks everything, and like you talked about improv earlier. I've gotten top 10 placements in my state back-to-back years for impromptu speaking, and
Nice.
Yeah, thank you. I was like, okay, this is how we do this, and this, and this, and that helps me get better with like rapid fire stuff. I use Google Docs for some of my earlier scripts before I just switched on to just like pen and paper, because at that point I was like, you know what, I need to do both at the same time.
Yeah, sometimes you got to slow yourself down in the writing process.
Yeah. Okay. And the final question is also from Sandman290. What was the best part about making this comic?
The best part so far has been the announcement. That was when it really started to feel real to me. Up until that point, it was so great to dream it. It was so wonderful to have these amazing collaborators. But I felt like a piece was missing, and that was being able to talk about it with people like the way we're talking about it right now. So the highlight for me, up until now, has been having the opportunity to share the joy of it with everyone. And it's like seeing their jokes, seeing their imagination, seeing their responses. That humor and that enthusiasm has been so inspiring for me to try and fill these issues. Because you got to understand, the first issue was not locked when we announced it. And as soon as I saw how excited people were, I read that first issue and I thought, well, this is good. Like, Jack did such an amazing job. Reggie did such an amazing job. But I did not put enough humor and character voice into this. So, inspired by all the great sort of excitement that I felt from everybody else around me, I've really worked hard to amp up that kind of, the level of humor and the level of character voice in my script since then. So it's really a feedback loop. It's been really fun to experience that. And yeah, I think that first day, the announcement day, that's been the most exciting part of this journey so far. But who knows what it'll be if I talk to you guys a year from now. It could be something else entirely.
Well, we would love to talk with you every single time.
Thank you.
Yeah. There was one other question that I got personally asked by a dear friend of mine that they wanted me to double check with you, and it was more about the Amy stuff. But there was one unique part about this. It's from Winterstorm. Did you feel that you had some pressure about writing Amy, the main girl of the series, for the first time, and did you have fun writing her?
This question hits on something that I haven't really talked about much yet. Amy's not only the main girl of the series. Amy is officially canon, the only female character in the series. And I did not take that lightly.
What?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I wasn't necessarily happy about that. It wasn't my choice.
That's crazy.
However, I did take the responsibility to heart, and I wanted to make sure that she was really showcased and done justice because of that, because we have an incredible female contingent of our Sonic fan base. And I'm not saying that they need a female character to relate, but I need them to know that it matters to us, right? And I don't take that lightly. Mothra, as much as Mothra has often been gendered female, is not officially female. Mothra is an it, as all the kaiju are, officially from Toho. And yeah, it was awesome to be able to use all of the characters I've been able to use. But when I was given that list, when they told me, okay, here's who we want you to use in the series, and I saw Amy was the only girl on there, I was like, okay, we got to make sure we don't slack on this. We really got to do her justice. And that's where I first came up with my hammers idea that we talked about earlier. The hammers idea did not work. That was not to everybody's satisfaction as much as I might have loved it. And so what I had to do after that was I had to be flexible and say, okay, I've got to try to find a different interpretation. And you know what? I'm embarrassed to say that at first, I didn't find a good interpretation. I actually needed a couple of tries to get that interpretation right because I guess I got a little discouraged, right? Which is only natural. That kind of thing happens. But I got a little bit too discouraged and I didn't give Amy enough to do after they said no to hammers. And so I went back to it and I was like, gotta make sure you don't let anybody down, man. You gotta really do your best on this. You gotta really deliver. And I went back and I took the suggestions I was given to use the fortune cards. And at that time, they were willing to have Amy be a bit more magical. I would say as we've made it closer to the finish line, Sega's been quite clear with us that Amy is not magical. And I know, I agree with them. Amy does not have magical abilities, but there was a time when she was maybe more in touch with what could have been perceived as magic, as opposed to where she is now, where she believes in the magic within herself, right? Is the best way to say it, I think. But not magical powers, Sega. But I took that responsibility really seriously, and it really ended up being something that has been enriching for me as a storyteller because I've really connected with the character in a very deep way. And yeah, it's been great, and I'm so thrilled to be here talking to all of you about this book and have so many great, insightful questions about Amy. That's really fun for me to be able to talk about that stuff.
The entire time I've had my Japan exclusive Amy plush with me for this. I just figured it made sense, and it's like,
yes,
it makes me so happy that I even have this specific thing. Because I'll have to actually, after we're done recording, I'll talk to you about that a little later. But it's like I'm happy to have an Amy with me right now while we're talking about her, because you very much care about this character. In fact, it's like it's. I should have guessed that this is the case, that you care so much about the greater female cast of Sonic the Hedgehog. I'm going to mention this like as a quick one shot, but I remember on your Tumblr, someone had asked you about some of the pitches you would have done for IDW Sonic, just the main book. And you surprisingly mentioned you wanted to do something with Enigma, and
yeah,
she's still a fairly recent addition. Which
Enigma is very new. So Enigma is an interesting thing. I really did want to work with Enigma. I have a very specific interpretation of Enigma that, if I'm being completely honest, is just headcanon for me. I see Enigma as the default personality and everything builds off from there. And we don't really know Enigma is indeed an Enigma. I think it's fun to work with a character like that. However, Enigma is not currently on the table for me, and I don't think will be anytime soon for reasons I'm not going to get into. But I do really love that character, and that is currently my favorite IDW Sonic villain, and would love to have the opportunity to work with that character down the line. So we'll see what happens a few years from now. But I take all that stuff really seriously. Like, the real truth is that I don't think it matters so much whether the character is male, female, non-binary, whatever, right? I'm going to do my best. I'm going to deliver. I'm going to look into their personality and find a way to connect with it. But we also have to be real about culturally, it's not to get too heavy with you guys here, but culturally, the way that patriarchy being the default setting for a lot of our lives has affected us. And one of the things is that female characters often get excluded at the expense of a female fandom. And that's not something I was willing to do in telling this story. I wasn't going to let that happen. So I did the best with what I was given. In this case, it was Amy as our only girl in a story, but I dedicated myself to it, and I believe that I wrote the hell out of it.
You're one cool dude. I've said it so many times, or maybe I haven't had the chance to say it in person, but you are just one cool dude.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah. One of the things that I remember us talking about in the original review of Sonic X Godzilla 1 for the podcast was the praise of Amy. This interview has given me a lot of perspective as someone that wants to get into writing, someone that's been trying to do that for a long time. This has given me a lot of perspective, and thank you for just giving insight onto all of this, because it is very intriguing and interesting to hear about this, and I think you've done a fantastic job with Amy. I think I can speak for most of the fan base, and certainly everybody here saying that we love your portrayal of Amy.
Thank you. Yeah, I generally in life right now, I'm in my magical girl phase, and she's the closest I can get to at the moment in the Sonic world to a magical girl. And I have a lot of fun with the ambiguity of it, because I almost like the idea more that she can be, even if she's not a quote unquote magical girl like Sailor Moon would be or something like that, she sees that within herself, so she can embody those personality traits and that strength and that power. But then we can also relate to her really easily because, like, I don't know, she's just swinging a big hammer. You know what I mean? Like, she's not going at blinding speed. She doesn't have, you know, crazy fists and an island to protect, like, you know, just the way most of us don't, right? But she does manifest her capability to keep up with these characters that are maybe, let's say, imbued with talents that a lot of us don't have the opportunity to tap into.
Yeah.
That was awesome. I'm gonna, and I'll also say it now. This has definitely been my favorite episode to record.
Same here.
Thank you. I'm honored to be a part of something that you guys have enjoyed like that.
Yeah. Are there
And
any?
we're honored to have had you here.
Is there
Thank
any
you.
last remaining questions people have?
Not for me.
Okay.
No, I'm all good here.
Yeah. I do have one silly question to end off on before we
Yeah.
get to end. What type of fish do you think Amy would be?
Oh boy, I should have saw that coming from a mile away.
We all
Yeah.
Oh man. Whew. I'm not like, I feel like I should be better versed than like kinds of fishes. It's not something I feel like I have a great like index of in my brain.
This was art done by my buddy Noel. It's Ames sea bass.
So I love an anglerfish, but Amy's clearly not an anglerfish. There's no way that's happening. I do feel like Amy would like want to be a koi, but wouldn't. You know what Amy would be? I'll tell you what Amy is. All right. You go to the fair, you get a goldfish. Somebody tells you, if you feed that goldfish, it'll keep growing, right? You don't believe them. But you put that goldfish in a giant tank, you feed that goldfish well every day. And before you know it, you got a goldfish that's as big as a koi. You've got a goldfish that you thought was very normal, but turned out to be incredibly magical. And that's because you believed in it, you gave it the potential to thrive, and the goldfish took that opportunity and grew. That's what I think Amy would be. She would be a giant goldfish.
A rose goldfish.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, we have a bunch of fishes, but we also have a bunch of thank yous to give out. I would like to say thank you to all of our viewers of the Podcast of Disaster. You made this possible. Thank you to the co-hosts of the Podcast of Disaster. I'd like to thank my co-producers Lord M, Court, and Sparky for keeping me sane. Especially, we talk about how the podcast is a group effort. There was an instance for like the last couple of months where I couldn't record on my end without there being an echo. So Lord M and Court stepped up and did that. I just want to give them their flowers here. But I would like to thank you for coming on this episode of the Podcast of Disaster, and infamous.
Thank you for having me on.
Guest.
Yeah, thanks again for being here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for having a really fun conversation about the first issue, because that's how I got to find out about you, and then that's why we were able to get in contact. So I appreciate you taking the opportunity to talk about the story and share how you felt about it, and I really enjoyed the fun convo that you had, and made me want to talk to you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for everything, man.
Yeah, it was an honor.
And for our viewers
Thank
at
you.
home, as of right now, Sonic X Godzilla issue 2 is coming out September 2nd, which I believe is Labor Day.
Yeah, it is that week. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Here's the wait. No, wait. Is Labor Day? I'm getting confused about this though. I need to look it up. I need to look at my calendar.
It was meaningless.
Labor Day this year is September 7th, according to my
Oh,
calendar.
okay, it is.
I'm just so used
All
to
right.
it being on the
That
second.
didn't sound right.
Yeah.
I know.
Like, yeah.
Labor Day weekend
we
when I was in
almost-
school was always the first weekend of September.
Well, yeah, it's a weird one because we almost could have had it on the 1st. Did we have it on the 1st last year?
I have
Maybe
Let
we
me
did.
look. Or last month.
I don't care about Labor Day. It's a stupid holiday, honestly.
It is kind of a stupid holiday. I do agree with that.
Hey, anything to get a day off of school, am I right?
Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah, not a day off of work though.
Last year
irony.
was on the 1st. Yeah.
Well, speaking of days that end, I believe that this episode of the Podcast of Disaster has came to an end. As always, thank you for watching the Podcast of Disaster. As always, be good to yourselves, others, and mothers. And we will see you next time. Goodbye,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.
Cheers,
Goodbye.
everybody.
Thank you again, Nick. for being here.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, my